Simone Biles went from this
Wow. Oh.
to this.
Flash the smiles of champions.
And she says her mental training is what made a difference.
I put a lot of mental work into it.
So what did she do differently this time around? I'm a mental performance coach who works with elite athletes. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what she did wrong in the 2020 Olympics and what she did right in the 2024 Olympics. Going into the 2020 Olympics, Simone Biles had just come off a breakout performance at the 2016 Olympics where she won 4 gold medals. If she could do the same in the 2020 Olympics, she would officially be declared the greatest gymnast of all time. In the lead up to 2020, all the Olympic commercials were about her, and she was arguably the most well-known athlete at the Olympics. The pressure appeared to be too much, because in the 2020 Olympics, she gave possibly the worst performance of her career and blamed it on how she had the twisties.
What is the twisties?
Your mind and your body is at a disconnect.
Disclaimer, the twisties were real, and I agree that she made the right decision to drop out of the events, or else she could have been severely injured. But the reason she even got the twisties was because of all the anxiety and pressure she felt.
To do something that I've done forever and just not be able to do it because of everything I've gone through is really crazy.
It's no coincidence that she just happened to get the twisties during the 1 week of the most important competition of her life. This caused her to drop out of 3 individual events, drop out of the team event, which caused them to get silver, and barely scraped by on the beams with the bronze. For an athlete that was supposed to be the greatest of all time, this was an utter disaster. But this all could have been prevented. Here are the mental mistakes she made that led to her nightmare performance in the 2020 Olympics. Mistake number 1 was paying too much attention to social media.
As soon as I landed, I was like, I can only see what they're saying on Twitter right now. That was my first thought.
As soon as she landed, while she was still on the mat, her first thought was, what are they gonna say about me on Twitter? I don't think y'all understand how unhealthy that is. She's one of the most talked about athletes in the world. If she goes on social media, she's going to see literally millions of opinions about her, both good and bad, and none helpful. So the fact that she's one of the greatest athletes ever and spends her time looking at opinions on social media makes total sense why she had the performance she did. What made it worse was in the aftermath, she decided to spend time on Twitter defending herself against Twitter trolls. She even went as far as to go on Instagram and host a Q&A to explain what the twisties are and why she dropped out. Simone Biles doesn't owe anyone an explanation, and her doing this shows that she put way too much weight on public opinion. The only opinions that should matter are those from her team, coach, and family, because they all know her and have her best interest at heart. Social media itself isn't bad, but when you let social media negatively affect you, it is, which was mistake number 2, letting criticism get to her head. In national and international competition leading up to the Olympics, Simone Biles had the bright idea to wear a goat on her leotard. If that wasn't bad enough, her reason for wearing the goat leotard wasn't to give herself confidence and remind herself that she was the best. It was to make the haters mad. That's how you know the haters definitely got to her head, which was a miracle because at the time, her ego was at an all-time high, which was mistake number 3, lacking humility. Listen to what she said in this interview just weeks before the 2020 Olympics.
Are you beatable?
I don't know.
The day you think you're unbeatable and incapable of losing is the day it'll happen, which is what ended up happening. If you believe you're unbeatable, you won't try as hard or train as hard, and this usually leads to you being beaten. But if you have the humility to understand that you're beatable and that your competitors are worthy opponents, then you're going to try harder and train harder, which usually leads to you performing your best and achieving your desired result. I always assume that there's someone out there who is capable of taking your spot, because this will maintain the hunger and drive to continue improving and reaching new heights. Not to mention, saying you're the GOAT during the middle of your career adds extra pressure and expectation to win every competition. And typically when you have the expectation to win, you don't normally do as well, because you'll be acting under the fear of needing to make it come true. Listen to how other GOATs responded to being called the GOAT.
Why do they call you the GOAT?
Some fans call me that. I don't call myself that.
Does this now make you the greatest player of all time? Are you now the GOAT?
I'm gonna let everybody else decide who that is.
Their humility allows them to continue putting in work because they know that there's always someone out there coming to take their spot. Mistake number 4 was not working with a mental health professional. This one wasn't necessarily her fault, as it was her team and the Olympic Committee. Simone Biles was going into this competition as the most talked about athlete with the highest expectation. We all knew she'd experienced a ton of pressure, yet there was no sports psychologist or mental health professional in sight. The only people she shouted out were her coach and athletic trainer. It was obvious that she wasn't prepared to deal with the magnitude of that Olympics. Mistake number 5 was not having fun. Let's watch her before her events in the 2020 Olympics. Does that look like an athlete who is confident and believes she can win? Not at all, especially since we know her personality is being fun and joyful. This new serious attitude was the manifestation of all the pressure she had mounted on herself in months prior. She was performing under the extreme expectation of the whole world and herself to live up to an image of being a GOAT, and that's what led to her downfall in 2020. But fortunately, we know that she redeemed herself in 2024. So how did she do it? Going into the 2024 Olympics, Simone was still the best gymnast in the world, but a lot of people had written her off. She was old for a gymnast, and based on her last Olympics, she had a lot to prove to retain her GOAT status. She experienced the same amount of pressure as in 2020, arguably even more, since there was a fear that what happened in 2020 would repeat itself.
As soon as I got lost, pack my bags, I'm out of there. Why am I putting myself through this?
Yet this time, she thrived under the pressure, leading her team to win gold and winning 3 more individual medals of 2 gold and 1 silver. So what did she do differently this time around?
So is that the magic here?
I think so, but also limiting social media.
The first thing she attributed her change in mentality to was eliminating social media. Why was that so important? By deleting social media, it shows that she no longer cares what people think, at least not as much as before.
That was my first thought. What are they gonna say about me?
Whether she had a good performance or a bad performance, she wasn't going to run to social media to see what other people said about her. Instead, she learned to determine on her own whether she was proud of her performance. Then she would meet with her team, family, and friends, people who love and support her. Outside of that, no opinions mattered to her. And I can't tell you how much more healthy that is for your mental peace of mind. Fix number 2 was she had humility.
What do we think?
I think we're gonna get the job done.
Instead of assuming that she was the GOAT and that no one could beat her, she learned from the last Olympics and had the humility to understand that she was still beatable and could have a bad day. But why this humility is so important is because if you genuinely believe that you're beatable, don't you think you'll try harder, prepare more, give more effort? Simone no longer went into competitions thinking she had it in the bag. She believed she had to do her absolute best in order to win. And by focusing only on that, she was able to do so.
I've never had an athlete that close, so it definitely brought out the best athlete in myself.
She even bowed down to the person who beat her in the floor routine. Do you think she would have done that in 2020?
Are you beatable?
I don't know.
And this time, she made the wise decision not to call herself the GOAT before the competition even started.
I was like, okay, if it goes well, we'll wear the GOAT necklace.
She waited until after the competition, when she was officially declared the GOAT, to put on her GOAT necklace. What was the difference here? She still called herself the GOAT. The difference is, in 2020, she wore the GOAT leotard before she even competed at the Olympics to prove it. In 2024, she wore her GOAT necklace only after she'd competed, won, and proved that she was indeed the GOAT. This showed that she was focusing on her performance, not her expectation to win, which ironically gives her the best chance to do so. She even had the humility to admit that she's human, doesn't see herself as the GOAT, and is just honored to be in the conversation.
It is crazy that I am in the conversation of greatest of all athletes because I just still think I'm Simone Biles from Spring, Texas that loves to flip.
That's more like it, Simone. That's the growth we like to see. Fix number 3 was she used criticism as fuel. During the Olympic trials, a former USA gymnastics Olympian had this to say about the USA team.
Besides Simone, the talent and the depth just isn't like what it used to be. The girls just don't have the work ethic.
Now in the past, Simone might have fired off on her on Twitter, which would have solved nothing and would have only served as a distraction. But instead, she heard it and used it as motivation to push her to lead her team to victory. Then, only after her team had won gold, she posted this on Instagram.
Lack of talent, lazy Olympic champions.
Proving that she heard Michaela's comments, but instead of letting the criticism get to her and affect her negatively, she used the criticism to her advantage as extra motivation to win gold. Fix number 4 was focusing on what was in her control. When she first decided to make her comeback, she was focused on getting back to the Olympics and winning gold. But her coach slowed her down and made her focus on regaining the skills that would allow her to get back to the Olympics.
I want to go back to the Olympics. I want to do this. And they're like, no. Let's just go back in the gym, get in shape, and see what happens.
By focusing on what was in her control, it made her comeback seem possible. Fix number 5 was smiling and being more playful. This Olympics, she was back to her playful self of smiling nonstop. And this allowed her to perform like herself. I'll put it like this. Can you have fun and stress at the same time? If you're having genuine fun and smiling, it's pretty difficult to feel worry and stress. To have fun is to be carefree, free of worry and stress, which allows your best to shine through. Lastly, this time around, it's pretty obvious that she worked on her mental health, and even mentions talking with her therapist the morning before one of the events.
Even this morning at 7 a.m. I saw my therapist, so just making sure I'm mentally well. I think you see that out on the competition floor.
If you're looking for a mental coach to take your game to the next level, click the link in the description to schedule a free session with me.